For those that don't know me, I'm Brandon, and I live off grid with my partner Nika, and we've done this for the last 7 years, living in an earthship, as well as kind of DIY projecting, if that's a word. But that kind of led me to this video. I wanted to take maybe a step back in time here. When Nika and I first were living in the house in the city or in town. Manhattan's a pretty small town, but the what I kind of wanted to go over, because someone in the comments they, had questions on, who or what other, videos or YouTube channels that are a little more in line with how we're doing things out here, which, you definitely could say that we live on a tighter budget than most people. Or we definitely live a very low cost life is the other way to put it, and I kind of like to see it that way, is that we have a way lower cost of living, and it's definitely, we're not doing more necessarily than we can handle, and that kind of goes financially. But I definitely want to go over, kind of maybe 5 things that have kind of got us or had got us, out of the house and onto our property, and maybe some good points for anybody that is looking for property, or already has property and they're considering on what they should build on it. So I guess maybe some of my things will go over it. But if you do have any questions that I don't cover in this video, post them in the comments section for sure. Definitely get the comment section going. I do respond pretty quickly to people, so definitely leave them there. I'm out in the kind of doing a walk and talk. I'm out in the addition right now, and it's a scorching 75 degrees in here. Oh no, that's the inside edition. Sorry, it's a scorching 80 degrees in here in this part of the Earthship greenhouse, and it's only about 30 degrees, 32 degrees outside, I think, but this sunshine really cooks it in here. So kind of, leads me, I guess, to the first point a little bit, honestly, with just how nice it is in here. I guess that's going into the first point, which is, having that vision or that goal and, utilizing the might of our thoughts in that sense. Because that's where, when we lived back in the house, I already had, I wanted land, probably where a lot of people are when they're first starting out. It's like, I want land, I want to be able to build on it, I want to be able to do whatever I want, live a more free life, live, a bit more self-sustaining, or homestead, or, designing permaculture, things like that. So, that was one thing that I did spend a lot of time on for myself, was, trying to figure out what I exactly wanted to do, after I got the plot of land. What kind of vision did I have? What, kind of goal did I have in mind? And, that took a lot of, I think, self-searching for one, because that involves, our values. What values do you hold within yourself, that you want to, express out in the world, from your own interior. So thinking about that kind of goal or vision, or, maybe you want to start a business. So I think that's probably almost the starting point, for most everybody, is just, thinking about it, and envisioning what it's going to be like, envisioning, your own expectations. And as I trip over some string here. So, I mean, and I guess kind of going here we go with point number 2. I will say, going into it, is what is your job? What's your job currently? What, with that vision of having land and doing what you want, that kind of goes into, how do you see yourself as well, like financially? Like, are you trying to live more on a budget? Or are you trying to live, with using less money, or having to input less costs into, what your vision or your dream is, what you want to build? So that's where, I definitely probably was a little more naive on my end. But I guess at the same time, it was, having an optimistic attitude, having a more neutral, positive kind of attitude, and that was where Neek and I took the risk, and, we didn't have jobs when we first moved out here. And that was, pre-thinking at the house while we're brainstorming what to build and drawing and, kind of getting the vision and the goal in mind. That's kind of where I think the optimism came that, there's always jobs out there. There's always something that we can figure out that, we can enjoy, but also create an income for ourselves. And, for us starting out, that was kind of, meeting new people out here was a big thing. And we ended up meeting the right people, and we ended up getting a job that was right across the hill from us. So, being able to ride the quad right over 5-minute drive. So, it's definitely something to consider when you are, venturing on this off-grid journey, or homesteading or whatever. That is something, it's kind of how much time do you want to be able to dedicate to your property, to your vision. And that's where, we do have to have a neutral, positive mindset that we know that things will improve for us if, we're researching, we're doing our homework, and, we're putting the time and effort into things. And that's also where we do have to acknowledge the positive or the negative aspects of things where, maybe things won't work out in the way that I'm thinking. Maybe there will be a stall out. Maybe, there's a lot of things that can definitely happen along the way that can come out of nowhere and that you're not prepared for. But in keeping, I think, that neutral, positive mindset, I think it somewhat more so prepares us as long as we are practicing this, being able to observe that we're always still making progress and we're always still moving forward. So that was kind of where Neek and we had a lot of optimism, and I think that probably led us to running into people more often than not, and just the community in general, that there was a lot more people that are more neighborly and friendly. So that just kind of goes with when you're looking for a property, definitely recognize like who's around and how people interact and whatnot, because that always can be something to anyone's advantage. And that was what happened to Nika and I. We ended up getting a job where it was gardening, and that's where got a little bit more pieces to my vision puzzle, my goal puzzle of what I wanted to create on our property as well. So that kind of just goes into the third point. It's like prioritizing needs over wants. It is kind of, it's contemplating, what do I really need? What do we all really need? It's shelter. We need food and we need water, and that's part of the vision for ourselves was, the homesteading part, not just gardening and regenerative, but there's a lot of permaculture aspects as well, that we wanted to be able to provide for ourselves, whatever, we thought of, and fruit and vegetables and, just the whole permaculture and off-grid and homesteading experience. We wanted just more freedom for our own selves and what we wanted to do. So I think that's kind of another important aspect. But that was just part of our journey, and my journey at least, was, what do we need and what do, over our wants. And, we made sacrifices with friends and family, and, it's a big sacrifice to go from city living to off-grid living, and that also just goes with how we prioritize our time. And we live a homestead life. We've got farm animals. We've got chickens. You can see the chickens out in the window there, and that's part of our kind of regenerative and permaculture thing, is we're letting our chickens in the garden area so they can dig and scratch and spread all their poop and nutrients to the garden bed to help us. So prioritizing needs over wants, I think that's something everyone always needs to consider, and everyone's different, so it's up to you what you need over what you want kind of aspect. So that's an individual thing, and I guess just for ourselves, what we've got going on here it's a low cost build. We did a lot of stuff ourselves, so we made a lot of sacrifices, and obviously things aren't perfect. Things aren't 100% complete. It's not all nicely painted and looks picture perfect like in town, and that's partially because we did it all ourselves. And so I guess that with all of that, it is kind of going backwards a little bit. Before getting the vision and all that stuff, look at options. Options are always out there, and I think one thing people do overlook is that if you don't think you have the funds, the money, to be able to save for a piece of land, or you're thinking that you need to save a whole lot of money, look into owner financing on properties. That's a big one. That's essentially what a real estate agent had introduced us to when we were first looking at properties, was owner financing, and that way we didn't have to go through a bank and get credit checks or anything like that. I will say that you still have to come with money in most cases. You still have to come with some. And in our case, we came up with $4,000. So, if anyone could even save a couple $1,000s, that might get you in the door with, even getting your own property. And then essentially you are making payments to the other person over time, and you have the chance to pay it off early, or without being penalized or anything like that. And that's something that can definitely cut down a whole lot of costs for anybody. And that was something that was super appealing to myself when we first heard about it, and really started looking at properties that had that kind of opportunity, because in a sense that was the exchange for the rent. Our needs over our wants, and our need was we needed to have lower costs, for living where we wanted to and the way that we wanted to. And, in turn, we have our payments for the land. As I'm sweating here, it's pretty hot in here. But, for the land, honestly, we only were paying $225 a month. And that's a monthly payment. Yeah, granted, there's some interest, which I think, we came with 7% interest, which that's a lot that people are even looking at right now for regular mortgages. So it's like you could have a way lower payment if you did that. $220, $225. I mean, that's nothing, especially if you've got a full-time job and you're willing to make sacrifices. Like ourselves, we ended up camping in a tent. We spent our whole summer in a tent while we built the dome, and that was, gave us a little bit more motivation to finish things before winter. So it kind of gave us the drive to actually put in the work and the effort, and in turn, that's what we got. I'm gonna step outside for a second. And that's where we got a big jump to our start. So and that just kind of goes into our, what are your values and what do you want to achieve and whatnot. And we started having goals and visions a bit farther into the future. Looking, once we got on the land, we started seeing more and experiencing more, and it's just been a journey the whole rest of the way. And that's essentially because of the vision that we did have, and that was because we chose to build on a lower budget, on utilizing the materials on the land. The values that I hold, it's working with nature. And the way that we worked with nature was building with what was already here and what kind of is around, and being able to recycle things that otherwise would end up in a landfill. So, and it's also kind of come at the same time of a whole different world of thought and a whole different mental attitude, you could say, that has kind of taken over myself. I know a big chunk, and I know Nika has a little bit. We've changed a lot in how we see things, how we see material, how we see garbage or recycling and such like that. So I think that would have been point number 5. So, that was point number 5, I think. So that's a little bit of how Nika and I got started, with things out here. We had expectations, we had goals, and we had a lot of things. And because of the way that we, held our values and what we wanted to achieve, this is what, energy in, energy out. So with the might of our thoughts that we've used, and this is what we've come up with on our property, and this is, how we live our life. And like I stated before, maybe it's not the most exciting, but I think it's a pretty satisfying life, seeing as we get to build whatever we want. And, we at least, are trying our best in our power with what we're given to do the things that we want to do, as well as, not spending a whole lot of money. So that's also, going into our values of not feeding so many, corporations, or maybe not so many businesses, but, it's in our attempt of trying to produce as much as we can on our own property, with our own power. So if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you sticking along and listening. Definitely check out my previous videos if you haven't yet. Go over kind of our solar, what we've got in the addition, and just the gardening season that's coming up, and how the Earthship is definitely helping us be a bit earlier on, the gardening season and selling vegetables. So that's our little niche that we've got going on with how we do our homestead, is that we're able to make a business out of what we're producing here now, the abundance of fruits and vegetables at the same time. So appreciate everyone for watching and sticking along with me. If you haven't yet, definitely click the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I would appreciate the support from anybody, because I know there's not many YouTube channels that are necessarily talking about low budget Earthship building or homesteading in that fashion. So maybe I can kind of help give some insight onto how we live, and not being, millionaires or anything like that. Although, I mean, it's like when we get, a couple $100, it almost feels like a couple $100,000 to us. At least it stretches pretty far. So at least for how we live. So appreciate the support, everyone. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I've got future videos coming up, so stay tuned for those, because the season is just starting. Peace.